Ready to dive into a world beyond Google. We've got some fascinating excerpts from George Gilder's Life After Google, and, well, let's just say we're ready to unearth some serious insights.
It's incredible how Gilder doesn't just critique. He paints this picture of a whole new technological landscape coming at us.
So the heart of it is that we're living under this Google system. What's that mean for, everyday life?
Well, think about it. Algorithms are shaping our lives more and more. They thrive on massive amounts of data. Every Google search, every website visit, it all feeds the system.
So then that data gets used for, what, targeted ads?
Right.
Predicting what we'll buy next.
Exactly. It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
And Gilder's saying this system, powerful as it is, has some serious vulnerabilities.
Right. Centralized data centers are inherently vulnerable. Huge security risk. Imagine a breach exposing tons of personal data, not to mention the potential for censorship, manipulation, all that.
Even back in 2002, Larry Page himself said, these ads suck on a Google message board. If the founder of Google is questioning their own model, that's got to mean something.
It does make you wonder, right? Especially when Gilder brings up Ashim Channa, the security expert. Channa says fighting hackers is an uphill battle because humans are just, well, susceptible to things like malware.
So if this Google system is so shaky, where do we go from here?
Gilder points to sky computing, this shift away from massive data centers, the clouds, and towards a more spread out network, like a distributed network of computing power.
Okay, so instead of data in a few giant warehouses, it's more like spread across a digital sky.
Exactly. And it builds on this idea called Bell's law. Computing power gets 100 times cheaper every decade, so new computers keep taking over.
Like how mainframes gave way to PCs. And now our phones are way more powerful, so each wave kind of redistributes that power.
Exactly. Gilder says sky computing is the next step in this evolution. And get this, back in '93, Eric Schmidt, then CTO of Sun Microsystems, kind of predicted this, said in an email, the real profits will go to the companies with the best networks, search and sort algorithms.
Sounds like Schmidt had a crystal ball. But it's not just about who controls the algorithms, is it?
No, it's about the power itself. Gilder sees the blockchain as the foundation for this whole post-Google world. Instead of giant corporations controlling data, individuals can secure and manage it with cryptographic keys.
So it's bigger than just Bitcoin, right? This blockchain idea.
Way bigger. Think your medical records on a blockchain, accessible only with your private key. Or artists getting paid directly by fans, no record labels taking a cut. That's the kind of shift we're talking about.
That's pretty wild. But how does this tie into Gilder's unbundling idea? I mean, aren't companies like Google and Facebook just getting bigger and bigger?
Gilder says there's a limit to that kind of consolidation. He cites Coase's law. Companies expand until doing things internally gets more expensive than outsourcing.
So as blockchain tech makes transactions and coordination outside of these big companies cheaper, we might see them break down.
It's a possibility. Think music industry. Artists get pennies from streaming services, right? But with blockchain platforms, they could sell music directly to fans, cut out the middleman, keep more of the profits.
So instead of these huge platforms, maybe we see more smaller or specialized companies. What would that look like, really?
Well, take the music industry. Artists are barely getting anything from these streaming giants. Blockchain could let them sell directly to fans, cutting out the record labels and keeping more of the cash.
That's a pretty radical shift. Could we really see that happen on a large scale? I mean, these big tech companies are powerful.
Gilder recognizes the resistance, but he also sees the forces driving this shift. Blockchain is just one part. He talks about virtual reality, new materials like graphene, and even AI becoming more decentralized.
So all these different tech threads are weaving a whole new tapestry. It's almost impossible to imagine all the possibilities. But where does that leave us as individuals? Do we just watch it happen? Or can we actually shape this technological revolution?
Rab, that's the question, isn't it? And that's exactly what we're going to dive into in the next part of our deep dive into life after Google. Prepping for this, one thing that really struck me, Gilder doesn't just predict these changes, he seems to really be into them.
It's like, what, a tech Indiana Jones leading us into uncharted territory.
Totally. And that's what makes this book more than just some tech analysis. It's like a challenge to rethink how we see the world.
So let's get specific. Gilder says the whole free service thing is kind of a lie. I mean, we all love free stuff. What's the catch?
We're paying, just not with actual money.
Yeah.
Think about it. You get free social media, but you get bombarded with ads.
And every search is tracked and analyzed.
Right. So we're paying with privacy, our time, even our peace of mind.
Gilder says this hidden economy kind of messes up how innovation works.
Yeah, instead of paying for what we actually value, we're stuck in this data extraction targeted advertising system.
And Gilder argues this free model can be dangerous, especially for security.
Exactly. If you're not charging for a product, you're less likely to spend big on protecting it.
Right. Why bother with security if nobody's stealing anything?
Yeah.
But we've seen those data breaches. They can be disastrous.
Totally.
It's like you get what you pay for. But Gilder's critique of Google's security really stood out. Their "if you see something, say something" campaign. It's like they're putting all the responsibility on users.
Like, it's our job to police the whole internet.
Makes you think about who's really accountable, right?
It does. Is it really fair to put all that burden on us when these companies are making bank off our data?
So if free is broken, what's the alternative?
Gilder sees blockchain systems as a way out of this messed up economy. Cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, they bring back the idea of scarcity. You can't just make unlimited amounts of it.
So it has a fixed limit. That's what gives it value.
Yeah, and it's decentralized, so no single entity controls it. Digital gold, but with even more potential.
How do you mean?
Think about music. Imagine musicians selling directly to fans. No more streaming services, no record labels. Blockchain could make that happen.
That's pretty radical. And Gilder's not afraid to point out that some powerful people really hate this idea.
Oh yeah, he names names. Warren Buffett, Jamie Dimon, even Paul Krugman.
Doesn't hold back, does he? To be fair, those guys aren't exactly known for embracing radical change.
True. But Gilder says they're missing the point. He points to the crazy growth of cryptocurrency, the billions invested, the new companies and jobs. He says this isn't just a fad, it's a fundamental shift in how we see value.
He even says he met Satoshi Nakamoto, the mysterious creator of Bitcoin. Really?
He doesn't give specifics, but it's an interesting thought. True or not, it lets him explore these deeper ideas behind Bitcoin, this whole decentralized system thing.
Like challenging the establishment.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like the Wild West of finance, all that excitement and risk. But Gilder sees this unbundling happening in lots of industries. He talks about ICOs, a new way for startups to raise money, and blockchain identity systems, giving us more control over our data.
He even talks about virtual reality, augmented reality, being powered by these decentralized network or crypto economies. A world where individuals have more power, the old gatekeepers lose their grip.
Exciting and a little scary, right? But if all these systems are decentralized, who makes the rules? How do we prevent chaos?
That's the key question. Gilder explores those potential challenges and some solutions. He's big on individual freedom, limited government, but he also knows we need some kind of governance.
For fairness, stability, yeah.
Right. He really goes after attempts to regulate the internet like a utility.
We've seen those net neutrality debates go on forever.
He sees those regulations as stifling innovation. The internet thrived because it was free from government control.
He has a point about the difference between the physical infrastructure of the internet and the content, right?
Exactly. The old model, the cable companies, they controlled both. But the internet changed all that. Now the same pipes can carry all kinds of content. Gilder says trying to regulate it the old way just won't work.
But what about those concerns that without net neutrality, big internet providers could favor certain content?
Yeah.
Create a fast lane for those who pay and leave the rest of us in the slow lane.
Gilder says the market wouldn't work that way. Internet providers have a big incentive to keep things fair because their customers want access to lots of different content.
If they restrict access, people will push back.
Right.
Interesting. Gilder's argument for less internet regulation is pretty compelling. But what really caught my eye was his analysis of money itself. He says we've forgotten what it's really for.
He sees this modern monetary policy with central banks just printing money as magical thinking, creating an illusion of wealth while our currency loses value.
He wants a more stable system, something tied to something tangible, like how gold used to be.
And that's where Bitcoin comes back in, right? He sees it as a potential model for a new system, digital gold, resistant to inflation and manipulation.
But even Gilder admits Bitcoin has limitations. It's so volatile.
Yeah, one day it's up, next day it's down. Not exactly what you want from a stable currency.
He has this conversation in the book with a Bitcoin skeptic, Trace Mayer. Mayer argues that this fixed supply could actually hurt Bitcoin's adoption as a currency.
Mayer's point is, as Bitcoin's value goes up, people will be less likely to spend it.
Leading to what, a deflationary spiral?
Yeah.
So is Bitcoin just digital gold, something you hoard, not spend? Or could it become something more practical?
That is the question, and it's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive into life after Google.
It's amazing how each layer we uncover in Gilder's Life After Google just reveals another layer. It's all connected. Money, technology, even knowledge itself.
Gilder really pushes us to rethink some pretty basic ideas about all of that stuff. Take AI, for example. He's not buying into all the hype about it becoming like this super intelligence that'll surpass humans.
Yeah, some of those predictions are pretty scary. But Gilder's not anti-AI, is he?
No, it's more nuanced than that. He recognizes the progress with machine learning, but says we're nowhere near machines that can truly think like us. He brings up the Turing test.
The idea that a machine is intelligent if it can, like, have a conversation that's indistinguishable from a human's.
Exactly. And his point is, even if a machine could trick us, that doesn't mean it understands what it's saying.
So it could just be really good at mimicking us, but not actually get the meaning.
Right. Gilder distinguishes between knowing and processing. Machines are amazing at processing data, but they don't actually know anything like we do.
So it's like the difference between having all the books in a library and actually understanding them.
Exactly. For Gilder, knowledge isn't just data, it's about context, meaning it's connecting information to our own experiences.
And that kind of knowledge is totally subjective. It's tied to our own consciousness, our unique view of the world.
Exactly. And that's why Gilder thinks human intelligence will always have an edge over AI, at least in some areas. Human creativity, intuition, making judgments with incomplete information, that stuff's hard to program.
So maybe focusing on AI that thinks like us is distracting us from developing our own potential.
That's a good question. He also points out the potential downsides of AI, especially if we don't think about the ethics.
We've all seen those sci-fi movies where AI takes over. But Gilder's concerns are more realistic, right?
Right, like AI perpetuating biases, algorithms trained on biased data.
Like those facial recognition systems that are worse at identifying people of color.
Yeah, or hiring algorithms that discriminate against women. And these aren't just hypotheticals, they're already happening.
It's a reminder that technology isn't neutral.
Right, definitely not. It reflects the values of its creators. If we're not careful, AI could just amplify those biases.
Gilder also talks about AI being used for bad stuff. Autonomous weapons making life or death decisions without humans. That's a scary thought.
He's worried about surveillance and social control, too. Some governments are already using facial recognition to track citizens.
And it's like the same tech that can empower us can be used to oppress us.
Yeah.
It all goes back to Gilder's point about human agency. We can't just let technology decide our future.
Right. We have to be involved in shaping it, making sure it's used for good.
So after this deep dive into Life After Google, where does that leave us? What do you hope our listeners take away from this?
I think the biggest thing is we're on the edge of a huge transformation, but it's not set in stone. We create the future. It doesn't just happen to us.
It's hopeful, but also challenging. We can't just wait for the future. We have to be a part of making it.
Life After Google gives us a way to think about the choices we have. It pushes us to question things, embrace new ideas.
It's really inspiring. And it leaves us with so much to think about. If knowledge is more than just data, and the human mind is more than just a machine, what does that mean for us in this crazy, changing world? That's a question we all have to answer. But one thing's for sure, the future isn't written yet. We get to write it.
And that's what makes it so exciting.